Think about the last week of your life. Take a moment and genuinely try to recall it. What comes to mind first? For most people, it is not the quiet, comfortable moments. Not the meal that tasted good. Not the conversation that went smoothly. Not the ordinary, pleasant moments that made up the majority of the week. What comes to mind first? What comes to mind most vividly, most immediately, most completely, is the argument, the embarrassing moment, the mistake, the rejection, the thing that went wrong, the comment that stung. A single difficult experience from last Tuesday is more vivid in your memory right now than an entire pleasant Saturday afternoon from the same week. This is not pessimism. This is not a bad attitude. This is not a character flaw. This is one of the most fundamental and most consequential features of a human brain. A feature so deeply wired into your neurology that it shapes everything. Your self-image, your relationships, your decisions, your mental health, and your entire experience of your own life. Today, we're going to show you exactly why your brain is built to hold on to the bad and let go of the good, and what the science says you could do to finally work with this feature of your mind instead of being unconsciously controlled by it. Stay with us, because what you are about to learn will change the way you understand your own memory, your own emotions, and your own story forever. The negativity bias, your brain's survival setting, the psychological phenomenon behind everything we're going to discuss today, has a name. Psychologists call it the negativity bias, and it is not a flaw in human psychology. It is a feature, a deliberately engineered survival mechanism that kept your ancestors alive in environments where a single moment of inattention to danger could be fatal. In the world, your brain was designed for negative experiences carried vastly more survival-relevant information than positive ones. Missing a beautiful sunset cost you nothing. Missing the rustle in the grass that meant a predator was approaching could cost you everything. Your ancestors who paid more attention to negative experiences, who remembered threats more vividly, who learned from dangerous situations more deeply, who remained hypervigilant to potential harm, survived more reliably than those who processed positive and negative experiences equally. Over hundreds of thousands of years, this survival advantage was encoded into the architecture of the human brain itself. Your brain today is the direct neurological descendant of brains that survived specifically because they treated negative experiences as more important, more memorable, and more worthy of sustained attention than positive ones. Neuroscientist Rick Hansen describes this beautifully. Your brain is like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. The bad sticks immediately and deeply. The good slides off without leaving a lasting impression unless you make deliberate effort to hold it. This was perfect for surviving on the African savanna. It is devastating for navigating modern life. The neuroscience of negative memory formation to understand why negative memories are so much more vivid and durable than positive ones, we need to look at what actually happens in your brain when you experience something emotionally significant. When you experience a negative event, particularly one involving threat, loss, rejection, or failure, your amygdala activates immediately and intensely. The amygdala is your brain's emotional processing and threat detection center. And when it activates in response to a negative experience, it does something remarkable. It signals your hippocampus, your memory formation center, to encode this experience with maximum priority and maximum detail. Your amygdala essentially stamps the negative experience as critically important survival information. And your hippocampus responds by encoding it deeply, vividly, and durably, attaching strong emotional tags to every detail of the memory that make it easy to retrieve and hard to forget. At the same time, your brain releases stress hormones, particularly norepinephrine, during negative emotional experiences. And norepinephrine directly enhances memory consolidation. It chemically strengthens the neural pathways associated with the negative memory, making it more accessible and more vivid over time rather than less. Positive experiences do not trigger the same cascade. Your amygdala does not flag them as survival critical. Your hippocampus does not prioritize their encoding. Your stress hormones do not consolidate them with the same chemical intensity. The result is a profound asymmetry in your memory system. Negative experiences are encoded deeply, consolidated strongly, and retrieved easily. Positive experiences are encoded lightly, consolidated weakly, and forgotten readily unless you make deliberate conscious effort to hold on to them. One harsh criticism from a colleague can override weeks of positive feedback in your memory and self-perception. One social rejection can overshadow dozens of moments of genuine connection. One significant failure can eclipse years of genuine achievement in the story you tell yourself about who you are. This is not catastrophizing. This is your brain's memory system operating exactly as it was designed to operate. How negativity bias shapes your self-image. Now let us talk about the consequence of negativity bias that most deeply affects your daily life and your long-term well-being. The story you tell yourself about who you are. Your self-image, your sense of your own competence, your own worth, your own likability, your own capability, is not built from an objective assessment of your life. It is built from your memories, and your memories are systematically biased toward the negative. This means the internal narrative most people carry about themselves is not an accurate reflection of their actual history. It is a distorted highlight reel where the failures are in high definition and the successes are barely visible. The person who gives a presentation that receives overwhelmingly positive feedback but contains one moment of stumbling will remember the stumble far more vividly than the applause. The parent who has 1,000 moments of genuine connection with their child but loses patience once will carry the image of that single moment of failure with far more psychological weight than the 1,000 moments of love. The professional who builds an impressive career over years but experiences one significant setback will often allow that setback to define their self-narrative more powerfully than everything they built before it. This negativity bias in self-perception is one of the primary drivers of imposter syndrome. The pervasive feeling that you're not as capable or worthy as other people believe you to be. It is not that imposters are objectively less capable. It is that their negativity-biased memory system is feeding them a distorted picture of their own history that systematically underweights their genuine achievements and overweights their genuine failures. Negativity bias in your relationships. Your negativity bias does not only distort your relationship with yourself, it distorts your relationships with everyone around you. Research by psychologist John Gottman, who spent decades studying couples and could predict divorce with over 90% accuracy from brief observations, identified what he called the magic ratio in healthy relationships. For every one negative interaction between partners, Gottman found that healthy relationships required approximately 5 positive interactions to maintain emotional balance and connection. 5 to 1. Not because positive interactions are 5 times more enjoyable than negative ones are painful, but because your brain's negativity bias means that negative interactions carry approximately 5 times more psychological weight than positive ones. One harsh exchange, one dismissive comment, one moment of contempt requires 5 genuine moments of warmth, appreciation, and connection to neurologically balance it out in both partners' memory and emotional experience of the relationship. This is why relationships that seem to have far more good moments than bad ones can still feel emotionally negative to both people involved. If the ratio of positive to negative interactions is not at least 5 to 1, the negativity bias ensures that the emotional tone of the relationship feels worse than the objective balance of interactions would suggest. The same dynamic operates in friendships, family relationships, and professional relationships. One moment of conflict criticism, or disappointment carries disproportionate psychological weight in your memory of a relationship, often overriding months of genuine positive connection. What the science recommends. So now you understand exactly why your brain holds onto the bad and releases the good, and why this systematic bias shapes your self-image, your relationships, and your entire emotional experience of your own life. Here is what psychological research shows can genuinely counteract the negativity bias without pretending it does not exist. First, deliberate savoring of positive experiences. Rick Hanson's research shows that the negativity bias can be partially counteracted by deliberately extending your conscious attention on positive experiences. Your brain encodes positive experiences lightly by default. But if you consciously hold a positive experience in your awareness for 20 to 30 seconds, really staying with it, noticing it, feeling it fully, you give your hippocampus enough time to begin encoding it more deeply. Hanson calls this practice taking in the good. It is not toxic positivity. It is deliberate neurological counterbalancing. You are not pretending the bad does not exist. You're giving the good a fighting chance to actually register in your memory system. Second, written gratitude practice with specificity. Generic gratitude journaling, writing "I am grateful for my family," has modest effects on well-being. But research from psychologist Martin Seligman shows that highly specific gratitude, writing in detail about one specific positive experience, why it happened, what it meant, produces significantly stronger positive emotion and memory encoding than generic gratitude. The specificity forces your brain to genuinely process and encode the positive experience rather than acknowledging it superficially and moving on. Third, reframing failure memories deliberately. Because negative memories are encoded with such intensity, they're also more accessible for reprocessing than positive ones. Cognitive behavioral research shows that deliberately revisiting a negative memory and consciously identifying what you learned from it, how you grew because of it, or how you cope with it effectively, changes the emotional tag attached to that memory over time. You cannot erase a negative memory, but you can change its meaning. And changing its meaning changes how it contributes to your self-narrative. Fourth, curating your information environment. Your brain's negativity bias means that negative news, negative content, and negative social comparisons will always register more powerfully than positive equivalents. Deliberately limiting your exposure to algorithmically amplified negativity, news feeds, social media outrage cycles, comparison-triggering content, reduces the volume of negative material your negativity bias has to work with. This is not avoidance. It is neurological resource management. Close. Your brain was not built to make you happy. It was built to keep you alive. And for hundreds of thousands of years, holding onto the bad more tightly than the good was the most reliable strategy for survival that evolution could produce. But you're not living in that world anymore. You're living in a world where the quality of your inner life, the story you tell yourself about who you are, what you deserve, and what is possible for you, matters more than almost anything else. And now that you understand exactly how your brain has been writing that story without your conscious input, you have the ability to pick up the pen yourself. If this video revealed something about your own mind that you needed to understand, share it with someone who has been too hard on themselves for too long, because they need to hear this more than they know. Subscribe to Mind Body Truth for more videos that reveal the hidden psychology behind your health, your habits, and your mind. Because understanding your brain is the beginning of finally being free from it.